So I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land in which we meet today. For me, this is the Whadjuk Noongar people of the Boorloo Nation here in Perth, Western Australia. I also pay my respects to elders past and present. It's still beach weather here in Perth, which is different where today's guests are joining from. This evening, I'm happy to present a talented Agile coach with a flair for visual communication, and Ben. Olina Glindevi from Stockholm, Sweden, and Ben Walder from London, England, where it's never beach weather. Olina and Ben are talking to us today about the creation of their book, and they'll also give us some tips for Visual Agile Coaching. Thank you. Thank you to our growing Perth Agile community for rocking up this evening to learn about Visual Agile Coaching. And a special call out for all our sketchnoters. Please grab your paper and pens and your 5-year-old confidence in your ability to draw so that you can record today's key points. Olina and Ben, the stage is yours.
Oh, thank you so much. Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for having us. Really excited to meet you guys. I will say a few words about the fairly short agenda. We will talk a little bit about how Ben and I met and how we created the Visual Agile Coach. And then the other half of the agenda, I will give you some drawing tips, some digital drawing tips, and I will open up for questions and so on. So that's a bit about the agenda. I will start with a short introduction on myself. I'm Olina. I'm from Stockholm in Sweden, and I'm an Agile coach since a few years back. And I've always been drawing and painting for as long as I can remember. And a few years back, I decided to incorporate that with my daily job. So Ben, who are you?
What about me? Okay, so yeah, I'm not the talented visual agile coach, hence we had to change the introduction pretty quickly. So I'm a guy who's worked in change and transformation for 20 plus years in London, financial services, that's banks, including banks such as Commonwealth Bank of Australia and asset managers such as First Sentier. So I've got some exposure to the Aussie work culture as well over those years. My passion has always been for skiing and cycling, which isn't great for the workplace. So the one that's probably more applicable is writing, and that you'll see is how Olina and I have put to use and partnered. Are we going to share screen, Ollie? Because
yeah, of course.
What we're going to do is we're going to kind of split it the next 40 minutes or so, half and half, a little bit on what we call our Visual Agile Coaching journey. It really could be a Visual Agile Coaching adventure. What we want you to take from this is kind of what happens when you kind of roll the dice and you take a chance and you just do something or get started. So we're going to tell you that journey through this kind of this visual timeline. Guys, feel free to put any questions, comments, observations in the chat. Put your hand up if we spot them for any questions, etc. And then the second half will be a digital drawing masterclass with Olina, the talented agile coach with a flair for visuals. So we'll talk through the platform she uses and some tips and tricks on that as well. Okay, so we met back in December 2021 in a small island in the middle of the Mediterranean called Malta, just kind of a little bit off the toe of Italy. We were working with and for a small agile consultancy, and had flown in to attend a PI planning and to conduct some training. And over the next 2 or 3 days, Olina and I started talking, and we kind of considered what is it that we could do to move the needle, kind of help this startup consultancy move forward and take off. I was going through my what I call Be More Pirate phase. So you can see the pink book there, Sam Conniff, Be More Pirate. And included in that, it was all about taking a risk and facing your fears and small, bold steps, etc. And I found it kind of pretty inspirational at the time. And a lot of my thinking was kind of led by that. So you've got to be careful what a book called Be More Pirate can make you do. And that led to Olina and I looking at what small, bold moves we could make to move the needle and push ourselves forward, but also get working together, because we felt after those 2-3 days, we wanted to work together. We didn't know what on, but we thought we'd give it a try. So that's where 52 posts, one post a week on LinkedIn came from. A small, bold move, a small, bold step. For me, it was definitely about facing my fears. The very thought of a LinkedIn post just kind of made me anxious and nervous. But if you want to be a writer and write a book, then, you know, you got to make some small, bold moves and get your words out there in public. So that's how it started. Is that how you remember it, Olina?
Yeah, somewhat, yes. So we kind of quickly and early on decided to form what was really a super small learning organization. Ben, he wanted to learn about agile practices, and I really wanted to improve my English. I was terrified of talking English, writing in English, and so on. So we both decided to support each other with that, our learning goals, really. And we set up, I can remember that we set up some KPIs and some goals for what we wanted to do and so on, and did that quite in a structured way. And after a while, after a couple of months, we saw that we had actually an effect on others in our surroundings. So we saw that we were inspiring others to pair up and do similar experiments. So that made us think about that and the fact that we had created our first thing, which we called the Power of Pops. I think it was Power of Partnerships. Wasn't that the name for it?
Power of Partnerships. So
yeah. So
great.
we tried to define that and try to make that into some sort of template for others to just be able to copy that, to get their thing going. And regarding the experiments, what we did was that we decided to do one post a week to, besides learn about different topic ourselves, also promote our own profile on LinkedIn, so work a little bit on the branding. So we decided to do one post a week, and we took turns on deciding on the topic. So we picked a topic, and then we did some research on our own, and then we met, and then we discussed and made that into a post, basically. So that meant that sometimes I had to do some bloody picture of someone playing rugby or whatever, or some guy cycling and something like that. And Ben had to go out reading about Glindevi or the integral model or something like that. And I'm thinking about this moose picture here, Ben. Do you remember me pushing you to do your own visual?
Yeah. So in the same way that Olina felt uncomfortable with her writing or her speaking in English, I was obviously very uncomfortable about using visuals. But it kind of felt that if you were going onto LinkedIn and say, hey guys, use visuals, I had to do so myself. So this was my first early attempt. I think I used PowerPoint, which is allowed, and chose a theme. And here we go. We have an infographic on why Swedes drink more coffee than the British. And this experimental phase was very much that. There was, I suppose, a little bit of discomfort on both sides. So I didn't particularly want to go and research and write about emotions in the workplace. And as I say, Olina didn't really want to learn or read about how rugby, for example, could be useful in the workplace. So there was kind of a little bit of testing each other out, and a little bit of discomfort on both sides, and a little bit of a learning, and still facing those fears, and putting ourselves in our discomfort zone. So, Ollie, can you just squeeze down the, yeah, that's it. So we're going to keep moving on our timeline, on our visual storyline. You can see from the jigsaw pieces that things started to come together. And at this phase, as we were getting into that routine of a post a week, or Ollie decide the subject, I decide the subject, etc., we started to see followers on LinkedIn build, and we started to feel that people were interested in this combination of visuals and thought leadership, or a topic that we discussed. And I think this comes from Olina's passion of visuals and Agile, that we started to really focus on pairing visuals with Agile. Agile is already a very visual methodology if you think about Kanbans and some of the other tools that'll be used. But starting to explain Agile, or Agile concepts, or Agile ways of working with visuals, and putting that out as our post, was something that we started to really zone in on and do more of. And at that point, we kind of decided we were going to be Visual Agile coaches, and that was going to be the thing that we focused on, or as we said here, we niched down. And when we niched down, we really went for it. So no more topics that were sort of off-piste, or kind of on the side. It was very much Agile and thought leadership. And I think here's some of your greatest hits, aren't they, Olina?
Yeah.
And do you want to talk about the niching down process?
Yeah, sure. So I think, luckily to me, we saw that the stuff that we created, of all the topics that we did, the Agile ones became most popular, basically. Luckily for me, since that is my passion topic. And I realized that I had so much use for the visuals that I did myself, and we saw that others seemed to have use for them as well. And when we niched down like this, our audience grew quite a lot, because I think we became quite specific in what we were trying to do. And also, there wasn't very much visual content out there on Agile overall, I think. Yeah.
So these are all still out there on Olina and my post LinkedIn feed. What was quite interesting, again, as an experiment, was the responses that we each got for our posts. Generally, no one responded to mine as a rule, but we were posting the same visuals and the same text, and the responses that we got were the text would change a little bit just to nuance towards my background or Olina's, but it was quite interesting, the difference in responses that we got. Some of the comments that Olina got weren't as kind, and you still pick that out, and that still happens to a certain extent. The other thing is we didn't know what we were doing or why we were doing it. It was really just that learning and that experiment, and also we were starting to improve our process. So all of a sudden, rather than it taking a whole week to do a post, we could do one of these in 24 hours and get them out. So again, it's really important, if you want to try something, if you want to move forward, just get started. And as you get started, you'll improve and you'll get better, and it'll get easier and easier. And then you'll find your capacity to do more increases as well. So with this increased profile on LinkedIn, and I really believe that if I had just been writing posts, I wouldn't have got any traction. The visuals and the writing, the visuals meant I was able to write less as well, so be more punchy. I think that's really what made it stand out. And we started to get invites to collaborate with other thought leaders in the Agile space, or other participants on LinkedIn. And this is a great example of this. FaZe reached out to us and said, "Hey guys, will you come and do a talk?" And all of a sudden we're talking to 20 odd people down in Western Australia. It's kind of crazy what that small, bold move, that putting yourself out there and just getting started can lead to. So here's some pictures of us in Helsinki, in Edinburgh, where else did we go? Vilnius, and some of the collaborations that we've done. There's our friend Axel who runs Drawify. We've done webinars with her. We've done a training in Antwerp with herself. It's just quite crazy what it'll lead to. And at this time, we were introduced. I was talking to a friend, and she was an author for the British Computer Society. And she said, well, tell you what, why don't I introduce you to our publisher? And we were like, okay, I've always wanted to write a book. I didn't know I was going to write a book called the Visual Agile Coach Playbook, but life does some strange things. So we were then introduced to BCS. We made our pitch, and that accumulation of the content, the creation of Visual Agile Coaching led to the kind of the writing of the book. Am I still talking about this bit? I think so.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So if you remember that Visual Agile Coaching form, the idea forming the combining of visuals and agile way back on the left on the timeline, and then all this material that we'd accumulated was kind of a good back catalogue. But what we did was we felt that we needed more substance or more depth to the Visual Agile Coach concept. So we researched 30 or so Agile Coach role profiles. If I'd done that now with ChatGPT, I missed it by about 6 months. It would have taken me 2 minutes, as opposed to a whole summer of going through these role profiles and pulling out the keywords. And from that, we came up with 9 roles and responsibilities that we felt were key for an Agile coach. But another discussion that we'd always had was this visual stuff. It's a bit of a luxury, isn't it? How am I going to use it in the workplace? How am I going to use it practically? And that was something that we discussed quite often, and was maybe, a point of conjecture, sometimes a point of argument. I was very much on the make it practical, make it usable. And Olina's from the view, hey, look at my visual. It's caught people's attention and they're engaging. So we were sort of two ends of the spectrum there. Well, we met in the middle by creating the toolkit. And you can see some of my hand-drawn sketches here. We've got the top right, the bounce back, where we took the idea of root cause analysis, the 5 whys for team, issue or conflict resolution, and then bouncing back with the 5 hows. On the left, you can see there's a stakeholder radar. So how you can make the mapping of stakeholders and how you're going to engage with them visual. On the right, you can see how it's been converted into a Drawify, and I believe is available on Miro. That solar system there is a tool that I use I've used it for rolling out an agile transformation, or for building out a new business function or department. And this started to be what Visual Agile Coaching came for me. It was that element of the agile growth mindset, wanting to learn, wanting to explore, wanting to discover, taking that information and then developing it in a way that was useful, whether it's in a self-coaching tool or a team coaching tool or in a workshop, developing it and giving its practical use. And that's where overlaying it and inducing the visuals was key, because we felt that even though with technology now we can host a call with us in Europe and you guys in Western Australia, we've lost that interaction that we have in face-to-face meetings. It's very easy to turn your camera off or zone out. And we wanted to use those visuals and these tools as a way to engage over millions, thousands of miles, etc., or make people come in to the office and have an event or a workshop. And that's what that toolkit from a practical perspective hopefully does. So that's essentially what has come together in the what we call the Visual Agile Coach Playbook. There's thought leadership in there that we've explained with visuals, which we were doing from the start. There's tools and templates that we've created with visuals to make them interactive and engaging and have a practical impact as well. There's a couple of little pictures here of Kermit and Miss Piggy. So I think on the left, if I ask Olina how writing the book was for her, she'll tell me it was like this picture here, me tapping around the keyboard, her with her easel. Other times it probably felt a little bit more like the picture on the right. Is that fair, Olina?
Well, for you, I don't know your experience, but you tend to say that, yes.
So here, that's where we've arrived at today. You can see some mock-ups for the book, how it's going to look. As far as a story goes, or a journey or an adventure, we're not quite sure where it ends. We know we're going to Agile Manchester in a few weeks. Then we're going to Bolzano in Italy. Quite excited about that. And then we've got a trip to Cork in Ireland, again, talking at conferences. That's another small, bold move, putting yourself out there. If you've never done it before, start applying, get your passion topic, apply for some conferences, go and speak at conferences. You meet people, you scare yourself a little bit, you put yourself out there, and kind of amazing things can happen. So that's the story. That's the Visual Agile Coaching journey and adventure. We could pause here for a second to answer any questions or comments before Olina just sets herself up for the technical digital drawing masterclass.
Olina, is that you doing a TED talk?
Let me see here. No, it's actually I was the graphic recording of a TED event here in Stockholm. So I partnered up with them, and that's what I'm doing. But maybe that is some crazy goal I can set forward. I don't know.
Yeah, I'll set that for you. I was also interested to hear about the different responses in LinkedIn for each of you. And more responses and more less kind ones. What do you put that down to?
Several things, I think. But we said, well, obviously, since my following is a bit larger than Ben's, maybe, then I'm.
As you keep reminding me.
Yeah, that obviously has something to do with the level of exposure that the post gets, but unfortunately, there's also, that's just the way it is with social media nowadays, right? I think especially women, and maybe we're not that many women in the Agile community, I would say, compared to men. So I don't know, it has a fair bit of that to do as well. What do you say, Ben? I don't know what your thoughts is, but I get a pat on the head maybe sometimes, and you get applause more often, maybe.
There was definitely instances where we would post something like racy, for example, which is very non-agile, but we had discovered it, and then we developed it for how it could be used in an agile team environment, etc. My responses would be, hey, great idea, I'm going to try that tomorrow. Whereas Olina would get, I can't believe you're an agile coach suggesting we use racy. Do you know what you're talking about? So there was definitely that sort of tone. And there were other, there was one the other day I posted the lean and the cycle time and got some favorable responses. Whereas Olina, you'd previously been asked if you know what you'd be talking about, and should you really be posting about this stuff? So it was just quite interesting seeing the different responses, etc. over time. But
and it's interesting because people aren't anonymous on LinkedIn; they have their profiles. So I thought people might be better behaved. No.
There was only one guy we've had to block from our accounts.
Wow.
So over it's been 2 or so years now of posting. That's not too bad, is it? So, but yeah, there was definitely a difference, which we've laughed about and enjoyed to a certain extent. Right, how are we going, Olina?
It's going all right. I'm setting up my stuff here, and I should be able to share screens and show you my iPad. Oh, here we go. You're able to see that, right? Perfect.
Yep.
So let's dive into the drawing part. And I've decided to focus on really the basics. So just interrupt me if you have questions of a more, advanced nature. I will happily try to answer that as well. But my main tool for digital drawing is Procreate. And it's the greatest tool I've ever encountered. I think costs about $10 or so to purchase. It's really, really the greatest tool. I also have another app called Concepts, which has a little bit of a different feel to it. It's a little bit, maybe I can show it actually. No, that was not it. Here we go. So this is Concept, which is a little bit more, I would say, advanced and has a little bit of a different feel to it. But the biggest difference between these tools are really that you can create vectorized images with concepts. And sometimes you want to do that, right? If you want to create images that you should be able to scale and so on. Exactly. That is not, you're not able to do that with Procreate, because in Procreate, you create rasterized images. So that's something to think about. If you have something that images that you will need to scale, then use concepts. But the first thing I would like to mention is to people who attend this sort of training with me often want to get started. They're newbies. They want to start using visual communication in their work and so on. And I always advise people to start to think about how can you use it? When can you use it? Where can you use it? And in what kind of situation? So maybe you have some sort of agile ceremonies, some meeting that you can draw an agenda for, whatever. Just have a think about where you can apply it and then go from there. And when it comes to Procreate, like the number one thing with Procreate is that you can work with layers. Layers is really the greatest thing. Remember to use layers whenever you draw something, because then you will be able to go back, edit stuff, remove things, and so on. So layers. Remember to use layers when you draw in Procreate. I'm going to do this fairly quickly because, this is really a crash course. I usually use a couple of hours of this kind of training. So please interrupt me if it's going too fast or if I'm missing something. Another thing to consider is to have a think about how your images are going to be used. Maybe they need to be printed. Maybe they are going to be used on the web or social media and so on. And depending on the use of your image, you might need to consider the size of your canvas. So when I started out drawing stuff, I had a fairly small, I think I used a screen size a fair bit. And then I discovered my drawings was kind of pixely when I tried to print them and so on. So I quickly learned to use bigger canvases, as big as possible, basically, just to be on the safe side. And the thing is, the bigger the canvas you create, the fewer layers you get to work with. So that's something you have to, just work with, and you can work around that. There's some tips and tricks, but the bigger the canvas, the fewer the layers. Unfortunately, that's just how Procreate works, right? The brushes I use, I can show that as well. That's the question I get quite a lot. And my favorite one is the Studio Pen. I think I do 99% of all my drawing with this Studio Pen, actually. I think it just works beautifully what I draw. So that's really individually what you like, but that's my favorite pen. So to get started sketchnoting, I I usually advise to start with, if you're really new to the concept, maybe you want to start with the letters. Letters can also be images. You can, if you start practicing lettering before you go about sketchnoting, maybe that is easier for you to sort of gain some confidence in drawing overall. And letters can really be beautiful images as well. So if you start out, try to be creative with your lettering, drawing a heading in a fun way and so on can do a lot of difference. So that's the first thing. And then you want to add people to your drawing. Like if you use people in your visuals, that will automatically get better traction basically from your audience. People will relate to seeing people. So what I usually do is I draw my people like this. I think maybe you've seen them on the net, like quite easily like this. But there's a tons of way that you can draw people. Some people prefer to draw like star people like this, or maybe square people like this, you know. So find your preferred way of drawing people that comes easy to you. Let's see if I can just move them a little here. And also, you want to convey emotions, right, with your images. So that is also something that I advise people to practice on. Maybe something like this, maybe a shock one, maybe an angry one. Oh, another thing. When I started out and I wanted using Procreate, and I can remember being really frustrated by the fact that you couldn't make a perfect circle, right? If you do like this and you hold a pen, you will not get a perfect circle. It would remain kind of like an oval. Well, that was really frustrating until I discovered that you can actually, let me just remove this so that you see what I do. If you want a perfect circle, do like this, hold the pen and tap. If you tap on the screen, you let go. That's how you do a perfect circle. All right. Then I was going to mention some stuff about icons. So the best thing you can do really if you want to become more visual in your communication is to think about what kind of icons is relevant to you. What kind of icons could you use in your daily job? Maybe see if I can find something suitable. I think, well, communication is obviously something that is relevant to everyone, right? So just have a think about what kind of icons can you have use for, and then practice that. I still try to practice my icons like at least 5 minutes a day, just to, you know, well, to create new ones and then have the muscle memory to draw them fast. So jump to the next one. Then I'm going to mention frames and containers. So when you do a visual, it's really handy and it's really nice to use containers because you want to, with containers, you differentiate this topic from this. And you can really separate information. You can make it you make it easier for your audience to see is related to one thing and what is separated from another, and so on and so on. So frames of all kinds is really, really useful. And my top tip for creating this is always to write your text first, and then you do the container. Not to mess up, right? Write your text first. I can make a little bit of white space here or something. All right. Let's see what I have next here. All right, so colors. Colors is really, really useful. Besides just the fact that it looks much more nicer using colors, it's much more appealing for the eye. Your brain will recognize what you're trying to convey faster if you use some colors. Do not go crazy though. It's a good rule of thumb to use maybe 2, 3, maximum 4 colors per visual to not make it too messy. So for instance, this cigar model thingy, I've used mainly yellow and blue. Let me see if I have another for coloring. No, I don't. Okay. And for this round robin, I've used yellow and gray, most of, and some black as well. And also, I wanted to talk a little bit about flow. This is also shown in this picture. So connectors is really, really a great way for you to use to guide your audience on where they should look at the image. So for instance, the cigar model again, I've used little yellow arrows here to just guide the viewer around the image. So it gets easier for you to read how you're supposed to read the picture, basically. The round robin has some sort of road here with some numbers as well to guide the viewer through the process. Same with this Scrum framework kind of thingy. I used a dotted line here to guide your eye through the flow. And then last but not least, a great way to add some, to basically make your images more interesting is to, here we go, here we got the colors. Here's some great examples of visuals with just 2, maybe 3 different colors to make. It's kind of nice looking at the image, right? It pops up, but I've just used basically 2, 3 colors in that one. Let's see if I can just remove that one and make another layer. So last but not least is shadowing. So I try to use a bit of shadow in all the images that I do, because it just gets a little bit more interesting looking at a picture with some shadow on it. Like this. I always add the shadow as another layer. It would just automatically make this picture a little bit more interesting for you to look at. Let's close that one. And a little bit more recognizable for the brain. All right. That was the speed crash course in Procreate. I hope that that you could pick up some tips from there. I usually do this at least half a day. So, all right. Any questions on digital drawing? Maybe just manual drawing.
Nigel's got a question.
Hey, that's really great. And thanks for the tip on the pen, because I always struggle with a pen. One of the things I find really hard, and I've noticed there's a few sketch notes here, is when someone's talking, trying to find what to draw, and then, any tips?
A few. So that's always, I do a fair bit of graphic recording, and that's always the challenge, right? You want to capture the most important stuff. I try to, if I can, read up on the content like beforehand, if there's an agenda or something, so I have some idea what they're going to talk about. And then I try to plan the canvas. So if I'm going to, can I share? I'm still sharing, yeah. So if I'm going to attend a 1 hour session where I'm graphic recording the whole piece, I try to plan like maybe the canvas like this. Maybe I do the first 15 minutes here and then another 15 minutes, and just plan the canvas like that can be helpful. But also, in my experience, people who give the talks usually stress the important things or repeat them. Maybe it's often that they have like 5 top tips or well, basically they stress something. Kind of other tips do I have around that? I think that is my main points there. Yeah. If they were something. Sorry.
Thank you. They're good starters. Thanks, Olina.
Oh, no worries. Thank you.
Olina, I have a question about fonts.
Yes.
I like a balloon font, and I like your balloon font. What's the tip to get the sort of squiggle highlighting that you do on it?
I had some example. Is it like this one you mean?
Round. Yeah. Is it just, it's white, so it looks shiny, and then a long line and a little line? Is that, oh, you've got 2 colors of orange there.
I think it's just one, let me draw it out instead. Just one orange, but what I tend to do, let's see if this works. Let's use your orange. If you just go on top of this with some shadowing, it will pop, right? You see that?
Yeah.
So, and if I add on top of that a little bit of white to get some shine there, there you go, right?
And what about tips for drawing that on paper? Because that's great, but then how do you add white? I'd love to be able to do that.
Yeah, so would I. Newland, they have, I just tried out, I was in California a couple of weeks ago at Stanford University doing some graphic recording there, and we had gotten examples of Newland's new white markers. And I think the idea with them, they're super new. I think the idea of them is that you should be able to draw with them on like even black paper, but it's not like using Tipex. It's kind of a see-through kind of thing. So it's really hard to make it that kind of effect. You have to really draw several times with that white pen to make it sort of try to get that effect.
I think there are different ink out there as well, like the acrylic, the new nylon.
Oh,
ones.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I haven't tried that one. Have you?
I've not tried the acrylic ones, no.
Okay. Yeah, I need to order that one and give it a go.
Does my mic work? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's working. So, Alina, I'm really interested in your experience with sharing, these posts and visuals. Have you
Yeah.
noticed a color or a color combination, like a palette that gets more attention, or have you noticed that certain colors are better for certain types of messaging, or for a particular audience, or yeah, have you noticed anything around different colors?
Yeah, for sure. So let me see if I have that one here somewhere. No, that's the book. I think generally using, what's the TEDx thing? Using this one that I posted just the other day, like this bright blue really catches people's eyes, and it works beautiful with white. So overall, that generates a lot of traction, but also this, like if you use bright yellow with some orange, that really pops out as well, right? Imagine that when you see that in the LinkedIn feed, it sort of pops out. So I think those are the main colors that really pops: bright blue, bright yellow. Because if you have something that's a little bit too crazy, let me see if I have something a little bit crazy, that could also work. It's kind of a different, deeper orange red kind of thing. But I've also noticed that the easier, like the simpler the images is, the more reaction it tend to get. But I think that's just the thing with people's attention span nowadays. Like the ones, the posts that you see that go really, really well on LinkedIn are often like quotes, because that's the amount of attention span that we have, basically. So this kind of really simple, super bright colors, really, really easy to read, is generally goes quite well.
Awesome, and I love that image, by the way. Thanks. That's great.
And it says a lot, right? It's just this took me like 3 minutes to draw, and it has a profound message. It's really, it says a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah, it gets your attention. You see it quickly, but you have to think about it for a second, and yeah, love it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any more questions? I have a bunch of questions, but I'm not going to hog it. Would anyone else? Has anyone else got some questions?
Alina, yeah, with the fill, you know, when you were doing your bubble lettering, how did you fill a big area on Procreate?
Yeah. Did you mean this one?
Yes, you filled it in orange, and when I try and fill, I colour it all in because I didn't realise there was a fill.
Oh, no, okay. So that's also how, I mean, that's just super beautiful with Procreate. Like if you have something that you want to color in, just draw that, drag and drop it.
Oh, drag and drop the color. Ah, okay.
And you can also, what I find really, really super good when you use Procreate is that if you have a canvas like this and you want to use like some specific color, maybe you have a client, or let's use this one for instance, you can see if I can do that. You can draw the whole palette thingy over here, so I can, you know, more easily access working with these colors and so on. So I don't have to go over there. I can just drag it over here and just have that really close. If you want to work over here. Whoops. Continue filling. Oh.
Game changer.
Come on. There we go. Yes. And also, I mean, I still love this. This is the simplest trick ever, but I still love it. This is like the best thing ever with Procreate, is that when you draw stuff, you want to make a square, which is kind of hard. And then the tab thingy, like I was struggling for so long with just, I was like so frustrated. Why doesn't it create a perfect circle? It just corrects this one to an oval. But if you tap it with a finger, you get a perfect one. I'm like, wow, yay. I mean, Procreate is so advanced. It's really basically like Photoshop. If you read up on it and view some tutorials, there's so many tricks, so many useful stuff to learn about.
That's
All
good.
right. Any other questions?
Well, I have one while people are thinking about it. I love how you convey emotions with your people. Your people have a particularly good sense of joy. They're so joyous. Could you give us some tips on, like, I really love how you draw mouths. Like, how do you do that?
You know, my biggest inspiration is Calvin and Hobbes, you know?
Oh, yeah.
I love their expressions. And I think like that guy is somewhat happy, right? But the bigger the mouth, like how happy is this guy? He's like really excited. The bigger the mouth, the greater the more expressful they get. So I think I just exaggerate the mouth, especially that my eyes tend to be kind of small and not that expressful. If I want to do my eyes a little bit more expressful or like looking like eyes, I tend to do that just a lot, right? It's a bit more detailed like that. But I think exaggerating, doing like big mouths does all the difference.
Oh, they're fantastic. Yeah, and I guess coloring in the mouth black and leaving the tongue. Also, like that guy in the bottom left doesn't have any teeth.
Oh, exactly.
Optional.
Guy, yeah. And then you can exaggerate as well with the body language.
Yeah.
Like that. Woohoo. All right. There's still 1 minute or so left for questions. I hope that you all picked up something.
Yeah, if no one else is going to ask anything, I've got a question about when you're thinking about what are you going to create. So, hey, I'm going to do a post a week. Then, what is your process, or any tips you can give on the process for starting to think about, like, how do you design or come up with a constraint or an idea when there's so much going on in the world, so many different things, like. Yeah. What is your process, or how do you decide what is relevant, what you're going to focus on and spend your energy, your precious energy on?
I think we had a fair bit of talk about that, Ben, right? Because we said quite early on, we realized that we need to really niche down. And I mean, niching down to Agile, well, that's a vast subject, isn't it? So I think the more niched you can be, the easier it is for you to A, create content, and B, for your audience to know what you're talking about to as well.
At one point, we hit upon 4-box models. So then we would have a back catalogue of 4-box models that we could they had the structure for Ollie to draw to, but everyone's different, and then I would have the structure to write to, etc. So then you've got a niche within a niche within a niche, and actually something as simple as a 4-box model, there's a lot you can write about them as well, and how you then apply them to the context. So yeah, niche within a niche within a niche within a niche, and then get your template and your process, because that's how you save the time. So it starts off complicated, and this is for work in general, starts off complicated and chaotic. In the end, it becomes a process that you can churn out.
Yeah, and I gotta say, as a more creative person, I need to allow myself to just create something crazy. I mean, I can get so fed up with just drawing agile stuff. I mean, for too long. So now and then I need to create something crazy, and then maybe I do what I did the other day, like just totally do something different, like drawing a squid or once in a while, allow yourself to do something fun just for the sake of it, and just to keep the love for it,
This happens particularly when we have a very specific article or content piece in the book that I'm asking Olina to draw for, Out Pops an Octopus or Pippi Longstocking. Not the 4-box model that I particularly need to complete that article.
I understand.
I've got a hard stop. I've got to get to the day job. So I just wanted to say thanks very much for the invite. This is just a great example of the adventure by just doing something, making that small, bold step, trying something different, putting yourself out there. So I'm going to skip off now and leave you guys to it. But thanks very much. And I put my LinkedIn on there as well. But yeah, catch up with us as and when you can. Cheers, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. That sounds like a good time to wrap it up. Thank you, Olina. Thank you, Ben. Thank you for giving up your time to share your learnings here with Perth Agile. Everybody, please give them a round of applause. If that's
Thank you.
lovely. It's a silent round of applause. That's great to hear your story, and I'm so impressed with how you both overcame fears, with Ben overcoming his fear of LinkedIn posts and Olina overcoming your fear of speaking English. You did fantastic today. It really did. You both have admirable courage. If anyone in the audience is interested in having a copy of the book, I'm collecting orders so that we can get a bulk postage over to Perth. So if you are in Perth, or you work where I work now, or you work where I used to work, I'm happy to use their internal systems to move the book around Australia. So ping me on LinkedIn would be the best place. Let me know if you want to join my bulk order. And if you created a sketch note, please be brave and share it. You can share it in Meetup. You can send it to me and I'll pass it to Olina. You can pass it to Olina directly on LinkedIn. It's like getting fan mail. Please don't hold back. Olina and Ben, you've met them. Ah, Dale, look at that. Look at that.
Wow, that's
Fantastic. Can't wait to see it. Our next talks are in the pipeline. So coming up, we've got John Barrett from the UK. He's going to do us an interactive session on problems versus outcomes. And we've got Kane Ma from Brisbane, Vegas, coming to talk to us about Scrum and artificial intelligence. So watch this space. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for coming. If you weren't here, Agile Perth, then we wouldn't be able to run these events and have these really great people. So thank you for rocking up tonight.
Thank you,
everybody.
Olina.
Thanks, Faye.
Good to meet you all.
Thanks, Olina. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Faye, for hosting. Appreciate it.
Welcome. I've got your book order.
Good. Yeah, I was going to say, I'm definitely ordering. Thank you.
You're so welcome.
Cheers.
So welcome. All right.
See you later. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.